Hello, everyone. On behalf of our partners at TDK Ventures, I am delighted to welcome you all to the inaugural Digital Transformation Week. I am Noboru Saito, President and CEO of TDK Corporation. Since our founding over 85 years ago, TDK has existed to accelerate human progress and chase a vision of technology for the betterment and well-being for everyone. Humankind is now on the precipice of a new era as data continues to permeate more of our lives, and we experience continued digital transformation, what we call DX. Industry 5.0, augmented reality, self-driving cars, flying cars, big data-driven medical solutions, human-robot collaboration. The possibilities are endless. And the science fiction dreams for the future are closer than ever to being a reality. TDK is committed to bringing this new vision of the future to light. And we want to be a drive for positive change, progress, and innovation through both our words and actions. Fortunately, we are not alone. Our partners and friends around the globe have answered the call, and the greatest minds, entrepreneurs, scientists, engineers, and investors are rising to the challenge. I'd like to praise TDK Ventures on exemplifying our commitment to digital transformation and ensuring they bring TDK goodness into your DX Week experience. They continue to pursue the technological frontier and continuously push the envelope. Their dedication and commitment to ensuring entrepreneur success demonstrate their tremendous desire to learn and to contribute to the many digital transformation industries. I'd like to extend my gratitude and appreciation to our partners, as well as each of you, our participants, for taking part. Without the great response that you all have already demonstrated, DX Week could not be a success that drives the innovations our world requires. It is all of you who make this effort possible, and your clear commitment and passion for a better tomorrow. So, filled with sincere appreciation, inspiration, and optimism, I wish you all the warmest of welcomes and look forward to witnessing the great success of TDK Ventures' first DX Week.
Thank you, Saito-san. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone, wherever you might be in the world. It is my absolutely pleasure to get to welcome you at TDK Ventures for the TDK Ventures Digital Transformation, or DX, Week 2022. Thank you so much for joining us. An event like this is only possible with the participation of great minds such as yours. And with all of us coming together, we can tackle the incredible challenges and harness the incredible opportunities that DX represents. Our first session this week is on the Metaverse, a term which remains almost science fiction in the public eye, but as a concept is rapidly evolving into both an interconnected digital space for the network of people and things, and an entity unto itself, which blurs the lines between the digital and the physical, the analog. Today, we get the chance to explore the possible futures of the metaverse with some of the brightest and biggest names in the game. My name is Nicolas Sauvage. I am the president of TDK Ventures, the corporate venture capital arm of the Japanese electronics giant TDK Corporation. Over the past few years, my team and I has had the pleasure and privilege of reviewing thousands of startups, many with potential overlap in the metaverse space. It's been an adventure seeing firsthand what the realm of the possible is in this space and the innovation that has sparked hopes for a better future. I will be moderating our session today, similar to the format we used for Energy Week 2021, our annual event around energy transformation. We crafted an incredible panel of thought leaders representing entrepreneurs, industry, legal, and the investment community. We are passionate about having true diversity in each panel. We believe this is what will give us an opportunity for breakthrough ideas and meaningful actions. Speaking of our panel, I am excited to introduce our amazing panelists, and I look forward to hearing their thoughts and insights in the conversation that will stem from them. First, we have Pearly Chen. Pearly is a VP at HTC with a unique operator-investor role at the forefront of immersive technology. She has held several leadership positions for HTC's VR content platform, early-stage venture investment program, including managing HTC's $100 million global accelerator ViveX, and a portfolio of over 100 startups, and other strategic and operational roles as chief of staff to chairwoman and CEO. She led the launch of HTC's VR for Impact and serves on the World Economic Forum's Global Future Council on VR AR. Pearly also has a podcast called Good Vibes with Vive, where she features founders in a portfolio that builds profound technologies that bring positive impact to society. Second is Ryo Kurokawa-san. Ryo is director at IBM, where he has been for 25 years and is Metaverse lead. He has years of experience as a hybrid and AI product leader in launching new product and services, including Metaverse business launch with hardware, software, infrastructure as a service, software as a service marketing. He helps translate company strategy from technology strengths to client value from that point of view, and has nearly 20 years of client-facing sales experience with over 3,000 clients. And he generally introduced us to the next panelist, Tai Ashida-san. Tai is a fashion designer who inherited the most prestigious fashion maison in Japan, Jun Ashida, from a father who founded it in 1963, nearly 60 years ago. As creative director of the maison, she's constantly pursuing innovation to complement the existing tradition of high-quality manufacturing with the concept of elegant and practical. In 2010, she designed the in-flight space outfit for astronaut Naoko Yamazaki on the American Space Shuttle Discovery. This was the first time a designer's creation was worn in space. In a 2022 spring-summer collection, she entered the metaverse world with Canon's volumetric video system using over 100 4K cameras to express the elegance and the fabric feel of a clothes design from any angle. Next is Julie Larson-Green. Julie is Magic Leap's Chief Technology Officer, drawing on more than 35 years of experience leading engineering and design for top technology companies, including Microsoft and Qualtrics. She oversees Magic Leap hardware, software, and product teams, and is responsible for the vision execution of the company's vision to deliver AR innovation to the enterprise. Importantly for today's discussion, she's passionate about building technologies that get out of the way, so you can focus on what matters. Most with a mantra, people first, technology second, which I know is not the only person in this panel thinking the same way. Next, we have Ember Allen. Ember is the CEO and founder of AA Labs and is leading on the Metaverse and hybrid events front. Ember is passionate about creating experiences and tools that promote human connection and helps companies train and engage with employees. She started AA Labs nearly a decade ago to create an immersive experience and now digital worlds to help brands stay connected with current customers and new audiences. She will be sharing on reducing friction for people to connect, learn, and play in the metaverse. Next is Britain Heller. Britain works at the intersection of technology, human rights, and the law. She's currently a fellow at the Atlantic Council with the Digital Forensic Research Labs, examining XR, or AR/VR, connection to society, human rights and privacy, and commerce. As former counsel in Foley's global business and human rights practice, Heller advised companies, investors, NGOs, and governments on integrating public safety and human rights. She was an inaugural AI and technology fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School, studying content moderation and security risk in VR, AR, XR, and emergent media. I invited her after reading a well-thought-through piece on Metaverse needing a 911 feature. And complementing our amazing group of panelists is Edgar Oslander. Edgar is Senior Director, Head of Strategic Partnerships and Intelligence at Meta, where he develops and executes on partnership and acquisition strategy for Metaverse, VR, AR, and new devices, but also on research initiatives and core technologies. In particular, he initiated and drove the partnership with EssilorLuxottica and redefined Facebook AR roadmap. He has worked on complex IP and joint development deals with silicon vendors, display manufacturers, optics and sensor suppliers, connectivity, tracking, computer vision, speech processing, and AI experts, universities, and other ecosystem players. Let's go through today's agenda. We just completed the first section with opening remarks and introductions of the panelists, and we will now proceed for the next 80 minutes with our panelists to discuss around two key questions on the right side: the most impactful innovation that can realize in the next 5 years, and the most challenging innovation but will disrupt the market in 10 years. Following the discussion will be time for some audience Q&A. The answers from our panelists will fuel the initial discussion. We will then shift gears and have an opportunity for you, the audience, to get involved. The first way to do this will be your votes on the answers provided by our panelists. Be sure to have your phone or browser ready to vote. Let's get started. Dear panelists, please see the link in the private chat at the right-hand side of your screen and click through to submit your answers to what you think is the most meaningful innovations to be realized in the next 5 years in Metaverse. We will then use your answers to begin our discussions. All right, let's start looking at the answers. I think we already have all of them. Thank you very much for being so fast. So we have de facto protocol, tech for healthier living, AR glasses people will wear and love, spatial audio, truly immersive AR, and an open ecosystem sparking curiosity and connecting communities, and more reality. I think we have everyone's answers. Thank you so much. How about we start with maybe the most cryptic of all, de facto protocol.
So thank you, Nicola. This is Kurokawa. Yes, they say the metaverse has a grouping problem already, but from the protocol point of view, after 50 years history, Internet becomes the base infrastructure. Before internet, we started building from local area network. There were many local ways to connect. Then we connected each local area network as wide area network. There were 7 layers to connect perfectly, but one day we decided to expect base layers to provide best effort connection. Then focused on presentation layer to use same protocol TCP/IP as common. TCP/IP was spread with Unix community because of its easy access to web connectivity. Now, back to the question, they say the metaverse has a grouping problem already. Yes, we have the difference technically, layers for user experience, devices, 3D applications, logic, AI, workflow, and data itself, and network connection, edge layer, and base infrastructure, including servers and storage, and tools, Unity, Unreal Engine, Blender, for 3D CG components, and extensions such as OBJ, RTX, DXF, etc. But one day, I expect the communities, game industries, creators economy, business developers, and users will find the default protocol as common to connect each other based on its accessibility. Nicola, if you don't mind, as Julie's mantra, both technology and people are important. Can I continue only 1 or 2 minutes on people?
Absolutely, as long as you are being very inclusive to every people.
Okay, thank you so much. I think our attitude to kids is paramount because after 5 years, they will start creating the world. Since the beginning of this year, we can see some negative articles or images of Metaverse say Doctor Strange in the multiverse of madness. In the film, Doctor Strange travels into the metaverse to face a mysterious new adversary. Seeing other versions of yourself make decisions that you would not make. Some versions of yourself might be more monstrous than others. The other article says, metaverse could be a serious problem for kids. I've seen the metaverse and I don't want it. It reminds me, when I was a kid, I was said, you cannot buy video games. Otherwise, your brain will become full because you don't read books. But I think it is not good or bad discussion. Teenagers grapple with lots of problems. It is natural to require praise to forget reality. They need the praise to recover themselves. They play online games because it is fun and they can see friends or feel enthusiasm on what they want to be like the high ranked player. It is same attitude that way they are so glad and become positive. Like Saito-san says in the first remarks, become positive when celebrities' office sites likes their comments on social media. My family joined the memorial fashion show Ashida-san held this month. My 16-year-old daughter was so excited. She posted the supermodel movie with Ashida-san's dress in Instagram. And I was surprised that my 13-year boy, he is quite a game geek boy, was also excited the show. The designs and the sense of beauty are sure to attract Generation Z quite positively. And to be honest, my son had never opened his mind toward me until I became interested in online games, Fortnite. The effort to expand what he likes leads us to have a chat on Apex Valorant. Now he is programming with Scratch, Roblox, and Unity. Let's expand what they like because online game player are well-trained pilots in 3D worlds and the potential 3D computer graphics developers in the future. Sorry, I speak too much. Back to you, Nicola.
Thank you, Rio. Actually, I want to hear from Britain what you think about what to be mindful about engaging with everyone, but let's start with kids.
I think the topic of kids in the metaverse is one that's been highly debated in the press and one that's really on everyone's mind. Many of these devices that are available commercially right now are rated age 13 and up, but we know the potential of this technology to assist with education and connecting families and really expanding our horizons, especially for children. Some of the best practices that you'll see across the industry include instituting parental controls, just like parents would have over other types of technological mediums, or allowing parents to check where their children have gone. Sometimes there's a teen mode that allows kind of a hybrid or a bridge between 13 and 18. But parents should be a little careful because there are conflicting studies about the impact the metaverse might have on a developing brain. Rio, I think our mothers should get together because mine didn't say video games would make my head full. She said they would make my head empty. So there, I think I'm going to be a parent in a few months, and so one of the things that
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. One of the things that that my family is concerned about is the developmental impact of these technologies on children. So making sure that we have more studies that talk about the impact, not just on cognition, but also on spatial development, and not just on social development, but on the ability of people to connect both online and offline. The studies have been mixed so far.
Thank you. Ember, do you have something you can
Yeah,
add?
I find it interesting. I've been a gamer since I was a little kid, and I grew up in a tiny little town in East Texas where barely anybody gets out. And I have to tell you, I had friends in Germany and all over the world from Halo and putting my headset on. And so I find it fascinating because it made the world so much smaller, yet made the areas of communication and connection so much of that same equalization, right? And so I love that. I see that all the time in esports in our gaming world as well, of where people will follow people all over the world and be able to like send messages to them. And so I love the potential of where I believe it's that choose your own adventure spread into our business world, spread into more of the things that we can do for education and for fun, not just for the fun, but also for learning and connecting with others. So I'm a big believer in it. I think in anything you set up parameters, but we've already seen like how so much of the world is connected because of it in the gaming space. And I think that's exactly what we have as an option now as it expands.
Very nice.
And
Ember. I was going to ask Ember to double click on this, which is you're clearly a prominent, but do you see anything we should be mindful and careful about for the kids to engage?
Yeah, I think what I find fascinating right now is I'm really focused in like those bridge products. And one of the things that I'm always looking at is what is the thing that they're actually learning in this space? Rio brought that up, where he was saying, that Minecraft, or, I mean, think about it. Fortnite is built in Unreal Engine. Like my little nephews are 10 learning how to design an Unreal Engine because they love Fortnite. So they're now building augmented reality little logos and stuff. They're 12, like 10 and 12. So I think it's fascinating as these kids tie in the dots of what they love playing on and the gaming engines that they're on and how those tie to the rest of the world. So I think that is something that's a really neat partnership.
I think, Pearlie, when it's about creativity, you will have a lot to add.
I simply wanted to echo on that optimism. Now, of course, we're all familiar with what the dystopian future of the metaverse could look like if we all kind of slip into that dystopia, letting our real world rot while we live obliviously in that virtual world. We all understand what that's like already because sci-fi authors have given us a great insight into it. But that's why we're all here, right? We have a reason to wake up every day making sure that this future we're building is the one that we want our children to grow up into. I have 3 young girls, and I can see how tremendous these potential of new technology are for their fast developing minds. Of course, every new technology can come with the hazards that we're all concerned about, but the potential, especially on the creativity side that Ember was passionately talking about, I think it's incredibly empowering with all these creator tools that you already mentioned, adding that on top of immersive, intuitive interfaces, now lowering a lot of that creative and technical barrier assisted by AI and just much more easier natural interfaces. Now everyone can create, even the 5-6-year-old kids to maybe 90-year-old grandma living in Japan. And so I find that idea of how the positive, beneficial version of the metaverse that we can all strive to build will unlock tremendous potential for human, more enhanced and more full and abundant human experiences universally. And there's a lot to hope for in this central idea and that's why we're all here, quite frankly.
Very nice. Now I want to hear from Edgar. What do you think?
Well, I think with all this innovation comes a lot of responsibility. So we have to build things responsibly because the metaverse is like the embodied internet. So yes, you can have many more. You can have more powerful education. You can have more powerful applications because you don't look at just a 2D screen. You are embodied in the universe you create or that has been created. However, comes also the flip side, which is there is more opportunity for bullying and more sensory action that we need to be aware of. So being responsible in these new creations is very important. And when you are in VR and you have a headset, it's not really recommended for people who are below 13 because the eyes and the brain are being formed. And I have a friend who is a doctor, an ophthalmologist, who invented a way to cure a lazy eye by just watching video games. So that's the positive aspect of how you can use this to better the brain and eye development. But the flip side of the coin is that you can also have a dangerous effect if this is not handled properly. So I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, thank you, Edgar. And while we were talking about creativity, I wanted to hear from Ashida-san. Clearly, you're thinking about fashion, which is all about creativity, a lot of creativity. How do you see the metaverse adding more creativity, more things that we can't do with the real world, with the metaverse?
Well, through my experience using a Canon's volumetric video system to present a new collection last season, it was I felt that the possibility is eternal. Really, what we did was that I just brought just one model in a greenback studio, and to make a whole collection in one video, one film, and the model, each time she wears, one dress, she only walked like 14 steps in a greenback studio, and after 4 seconds, in the computer, they could control the model, from any angle to show the clothes, and it was quite amazing to see, like dresses from any angle, like even from, of course, from the back, from the front and the top, and camera can like move any angle, around the model, and it was that's something that you can never do in real life, and it was new way of showing the possibility of clothes, and I thought it was really useful for any kind of fashion to present. And also in future, if you want to dress, if you want to dress your avatar, you can create your own design to dress. It's very easy. Like in real life, in order to make clothes for yourself, you have to know how to make patterns, how to put them together, and you need technique. But in metaverse, it can be anything. I mean, it can be so creative, to dress anyone. So there are many possibilities, even with fashion in metaverse.
Very nice. Now I want to move again to the enterprise, but not the fashion, but the generic enterprise. Julie, how do you see enabling even more creativity, the next level of creativity in the enterprise?
I've been thinking a lot about that. I think in the enterprise, we have an opportunity to really, start there with what we can do with augmented reality and how we can bridge the digital and the physical worlds into one. So instead of having technology that takes you out of the physical world or takes your attention away from the task at hand, it really helps you stay present and helps give you superpowers. So of perceiving the world around you, of spatial audio, hearing things in that alert your attention, or being able to see a heads-up display in context of the work that you're doing. So you're not always going into your phone or into your computer or into another already a metaverse, but one that's a little portal through into the metaverse, but really bringing all of that together into the work world, and where I think it will really land first as an essential capability. So if you think about things where you're using 3D information to perform surgery, where before you would be looking at a 3D image on a 2D screen, now you can look at it in 3D. So, passing that catheter through the heart, you can do it more naturally than you would if you were trying to guess where you are on the 2D screen. And so I think as more people understand how bridging that physical and digital worlds can keep you in the moment for the work that you're doing, and how it becomes an essential part of what you're doing, that will eventually make its way into the consumer world. But early on, I think that there's barriers in the creativity around people wanting to wear glasses, or people that wanting to look funny. So in places where people are already doing those things today in their work world, it's easier to start from there and in augmenting what they do. And we're starting to see some really amazing things that people are doing with the tech, things that you never would have imagined possible in them. And I'm really excited for the future.
I echo Julie with a lot of this excitement on how simulation and real time, let's say surgical operations or remote assisting in industrial settings are extremely magical and extremely productive for the workforce of today already. It's as if we're already living in tomorrow's metaverse. I also want to raise the exciting development on the tool side of things that empower enterprises, companies to create their own simulation modules and tools. Because nowadays, a lot of the enterprise side of training modules take a long time, a large team, a large amount of resources to create, let's say, a simulation training on hard or soft skills. But then it's hard to scale to tens of thousands of employees globally, and to stay up to date with the fast changing needs of the business. But with a lot of the tools that are being created today by a lot of these founders building on the forefront, hospitals can now take those creator authoring tools in a very no-code or low-code way and create tons of different modules to train their medical staff, and the same for all kinds of other soft and hard skills training. So when we, again, going back to the creativity and empowering concept of how when technology comes in and create these tools and lower those barriers, not just for individuals, but for businesses as well. They don't need to hire and retain large development teams. They just need someone who understands how to design learning experiences and use these tools to drag and drop and visual script. Then they can create great training modules in a much more scalable way. That's another trend that I'm very excited about.
I love it. It's interesting. I love what both Julie and what Preli you were saying, but it's interesting because as a gamer and a huge fan of augmented reality glasses and the HTC Vive glasses for both of y'all's companies, I keep saying, how do I get my little sister there? How do I get middle America there sometimes, right? And so one of the things that I keep focusing on is, what is that bridge product for the business world, right? Like, what is the thing that you got your doctors doing the AR, and you've got all these college kids learning in the Vive headsets on simulations? How do I get the rest of the world that may not be as tech savvy to understand why they love it? Or what Rio had said, why his son loves the gaming world so much, right? And so really focusing on that frictionless bridge product is what we're doing right now at AA Labs, of like, how do I help between those generational gaps? Right? Like, we tried 3D worlds for us in those web-enabled devices, like on your computer. And we found even that was hard. Like, my college kids would spend 42 minutes in it. My executives spent 3 minutes. So building a product that was more of that 2D with 3D elements really helped kind of have that interaction. Our interactions went over an hour internally at companies like actually IBM and Dell and Apple and Chanel, because they were able to actually be able to bring in some of the products they were comfortable with, you know, like the Google Documents or the Miro board inside of this digital platform. And so I think it's really exciting on like, how do we get them there?
It's a good topic. Edgar, next.
Yeah, I agree with the three of you actually, but I'm not sure we should contrast AR and VR and games and so on. They all fit different purposes. So for enterprise, people are paid to wear what they what they wear. So, and looks don't matter and so forth. Well, in the consumer world, people pay to wear, for example, those Ray-Ban story glasses. So hopefully they look good and whatever. So this is the big difference. And so we cannot say, okay, this is the enterprise world and how do we bridge it to the gaming, because it's just different. Of course, there is companies like Surgical Theater that work on Oculus and Vive and so forth. So there is no advertisement here, but it's like they simulate brain surgery before doing the surgery. And it makes sense in VR, but then in AR, like Julie said, it's better to have it in AR rather than in VR, because you need to see the patient. So there are very different devices and use cases per segment, and we cannot have a universal thing that is and immersive and look good and VR and AR. Yes, we can do localized dimming and transform AR into VR, but I think the goals are kind of different, and we need to be careful not to design flying cars when we want to design an airplane, or a car when we want to design a car that goes from point A to B. I know there will be flying cars one day, or there might be some already, but there are different price structures and different rules, and so this is something we need to have in mind.
I can tell you, Edgar, we will have flying cars. We have invested in one of the company doing that, so for sure.
My thoughts around this are less tied to the technology and more tied to the access. I used to produce AR and VR pieces designed to promote civil rights and human rights, and one of the most interesting things that I got to be involved in was taking all of the US hate crime stats, all 11 years worth at the time, digitizing them and putting them in an interactive map format in VR. I then put law enforcement trainers who would teach about hate crimes in it and took them on a personalized tour of the country, asking them to start, let's look at your hometown. Let's look at where your parents were born. And using their personalized experience, even the reaching out and grabbing and pulling the sections on the map really made them engage with the technology more. Not one person who went inside the experience didn't get something completely new out of it, even if they'd been training for 20 years. And so this is very different, I think, than enterprise training. But it more talks about getting this technology out there to schools, to civil servants, to members of society. I would love to see companies give educational licenses that didn't have to be tied to the enterprise license. Just so I think it'd be good for the companies overall, because then we could get more users on board too. I guess the kind of related second comment is on the technological side. I see spatial audio actually as being sort of the next thing that really should be worked on. I see a lot of companies trying to increase resolution and visual fidelity, but if you look at studies, it's actually spatial audio in the sense that the sound comes around from where it should, that increases a user's sense of presence more than anything else. So I see people focusing on haptics or on trying to make photorealistic displays, and if if the sound isn't there, the user's not going to actually be as present as they could. So for me, that is a very simple thing. Since the technology already exists, there's just a limited technological hardscape right now in which to put it.
Fascinating. I feel like we've taken a few turns since the original comment. I meant to echo what Ember was trying to say in making sure that there is a gateway for the rest of the world who are less tech savvy or early adopter type of demographics. Some of our portfolio companies like VR Chat, a very well-known social VR network, has seen some very early success in offering a web version of those 3D worlds, for example. And that's where you're seeing 90%, 95% of very active engagement. And then they will see people who are acting in VR inside of those worlds on their web interfaces. They'd be inspired to adopt the immersive interfaces. So it became a very, very interesting user acquisition tool, actually, by opening the web interfaces. I know that, well, now, for example, we are also a big believer in making sure that there are multiple gateways into the interoperable metaverse worlds that we're all building, so that you can access it not only with your immersive high-tech glasses, but also with any connected browser. I've seen recently that Meta has announced the initiative to bring Horizon Worlds on WebXR as well. And so I feel like that transitional gap is definitely something that us building on the forefront of the industry is considering, because there's got to be multiple entry points. It could be maybe your TV, your car, your different connected browsers from different devices. But before ultimately we all have the right devices, whether that's AR with the dimmable features or VR with pass-through, or a combination, as Edgar was saying, the right product designed for the right use cases and context. There will be a transition period as we get there, but people will start to appreciate and benefit from the many benefits 3D worlds, creativity tools, and potentially livelihoods will have to offer in enhancing human experiences.
So I wanted to add, I kind of bring it back to what Rio was saying in the very beginning about how, the taxonomy and the protocols and the things that how we think about will really help us to all understand and push this forward. There is the way I think about it is not about AR or VR. There's scenarios and the ways that people want to gather in different ways. So I think about it more in terms of, there's the virtual place where we're all
issues at companies to get ahead of this issue, because I think it's going to hold people back.
And Ember, if I can double click, this is clearly something you believe is most challenging within 10 years.
Yes.
And before that, we can't really scale. So how do you think we can handle the in-between now and then?
I really wish I had an easy answer for that. I think there's a mix of user flagging to give companies the information that they need to create these enforcement regimes. I think we have to have transparency around what the rules are in these universes and how the rules are being enforced, especially if you're asking the users to kind of carry some of the burden of content moderation in the meanwhile. And I think that we all just need to be a little more patient with each other. It's most of the people that I meet in virtual worlds are there because they love it and they want to have a good time. So just being a little more gracious while we figure out how to scale these systems.
I think that's a golden nugget. We should really all be patient, gracious, and respectful. But unfortunately, there is always a few bad actors, which transitions to more reality, but maybe in an optimistic view. Ashida-san, could you tell us more about how you see the move to more reality when we're talking about metaverse? And
in metaverse, I think fashion is going to be more important to express one's personality. So I think people have to choose if you want to go for very futuristic fashion or dress the same way as reality. And in order to dress as reality, I think you need to feel the texture and also the comfort, or like Metaverse, the images are quite clear, but without much texture. So, but in real life, especially, I'm talking about clothes, though. I'm talking about fashion, but usually we have texture, and it's the most luxurious part of clothing. But in Metaverse, right now, technically, like the texture, it's not so, it's not expressed so much. Like, you see all this futuristic clothes to be very, clean and, smooth and, not so much texture. Like, you can't feel like really a touch of wool or touch of cashmere or anything. But in future, if you want to really dress like real life, if you choose to, dress like real life, I think you started to need to have this kind of texture or like touch of fabric and stuff like that. So I think this is going to be like like what you choose to express yourself. So fashion industry also has to choose if you really want to go for like this imaginary fashion, or like selling in real life, or you going for NFT. Like I think designers' clothes will be more valuable, using NFT. So it's going to be like you kind of have to really choose between like going for futuristic or like more reality in Metaverse in future.
So let me share the homework from Ashida-san. How we tech guys and girls provide the sense of touch remotely. Yes, we can touch our smartphone screen, interact with. I am expecting the audience to provide the haptic 3D controller. It might be an intuitive globe type device like in the movie Iron Man and Avatar. Our palm has many points of pain, warmth, cold. They might help feeling the texture of smooth or rough or wobbly. Our brain can feel it immersive when we can feel more sense remotely. So Ashida-san shared quite interesting story me last night. 50 years ago, everybody wear silver type, how can I say that, strange dress in the future in 2022. However, nobody wears. So the technology should get along with the reality. This is what this is also the homework from Ashida-san from our tech guys. Thank you.
And no doubt that there's a lot of different tactile technologies. We've invested in some of those as well, but ultimately, it will always be disappointing compared to the real reality, right? And so my view on this has always been that as much as how awe-inspiring, amazing, mind-blowing these virtual world experiences will be, at the end of the day, when you come back to your physical reality, all of that you've just experienced in the virtual world has just made you all that much more keenly aware and grateful and present with your physical reality and physical interactions, because ultimately that's still what makes us ultimately human. And so what my view on our time spent on this digital reality or metaverse, or the blend of physical and digital in the near future, in 5, 10 years time, is that we are more connected to one another. We extend and expand our human experience with all these possibilities of blurring digital and physical, but it's not to diminish our desire, innate human desire to want to be together with other human beings and see beautiful waterfalls and flowers and feel that sunshine on your face and touch a petal of flowers, right? And so I believe that all that is to achieve the ultimate goal of having more time, space, and love for one another in our world.
Very nice.
I was going to go back to something that Carrie said earlier about, how to protect kids and in this new metaverse, and what some of the challenges in the next 10 years. And one of the things I think is really interesting is to think about in 10 years, the kids that have been grown up with AR, VR as a thing are going to be in jobs, and they're going to have expectations set based on what they're doing today. And so the things that they're doing in games, like I remember the first time my son and I played video games together. I think we were playing Halo, and he was teaching me how to play. And he jumped off of something that I never in a million years would have thought was possible, because in the physical world, it wasn't possible. I'm like, how did you know you could do that? And he goes, because I just tried it and it worked. And so I wouldn't even have thought, because I'm stuck in my reality that I've grown up in and the technologies that I've learned. And so I think, part of the challenge is us letting go of our existing preconceived notions about what it could be, and letting that creativity happen, and of course there has to be guardrails and protections around it. But I think that the next generation is going to wants to get out of their room and into the real world and wants technology to help them and assist them and give them superpowers in the real world, rather than having just superpowers in that game in their office. And I'm really excited to see what happens with that. And I would love, some more of my fellow panelists to talk about superpowers that this world can bring to people.
Well, good. That's a good segue to what I wanted to talk about, these superpowers. It's whenever I think about what's an interesting challenge for the next 10 years, it's that, and someone talked about a TV show. I bring another one called the $6 Million Man, but now I think there is inflation, so I don't know if it's the $6 billion man or whatever. But so this, to have this superpower of seeing better, hearing better, this is something that we are working on, and I can point you to some of the work we have published publicly in a blog called Tech at Meta. For example, we see how we try to provide more intuitive and discrete, easy to use user interface as well, to interact with those new powers with, for example, something called electromyography, EMG in short, that uses sensors to translate electrical motor nerve signals that travel through the wrist and to the end into digital commands that you can use and control the device. Of course, you can do that with also with voice control, voice commands, but this is not discrete and private. So there. This is just one example of innovation we are working towards more easy to use and discrete devices, but also to make a bit what Julie said, to make a technology disappear and be magical.
Mm. Very nice. Ember, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I love building off of what Edgar was just talking about, that superpowers. I mean, I feel like that's one of the biggest things, and the challenge over the next 10 years would be amazing to have our memory extended, because I think AR could do such great things in that space. I see you, and I'm like, oh, I remember I saw you 5 years ago, and we talked about this. And remember we had this in contact? And I think one of the biggest challenges we see right now in building these spaces and having so many different ages and groups in this, and we'll see it even more over the next 10 years, is people keep trying to replace real life. Real life's amazing. Using digital to enhance it and then help bridge that gap between one experience and the next. I mean, think about the people you'll meet here, the conversations that are made. How do you keep that going, and how do you stay in touch? And if we really look at that as going back to what a superpower could be, is it's not just what Web 2 is meant to be for networking. It's more of an open ecosystem of now you take that networking, now you take how I get to connect with you and remember things. And then how do I extend that? Well, how about we get to crowdfund on top of it? Like having an open ecosystem that allows people to go, love that, let's do this as well, and build on top of it, and having those open dialogues back and forth, I think is really going to be possible in a much visual way.
I think open collaborative ecosystem is going to get everyone fired up. So I just want to have one final question to Ashida-san about the more reality part and what Julie was talking about things that you can't do in reality, but you can do in Metaverse. Ashida-san, could you comment about what you think that could mean for your business?
For example, as I said, fashion will be, very important in Metaverse to express your own personality. But some people are not so good at fashion. Some people don't have fashion sense, or they don't know what to choose, to dress your avatar. And I would imagine that in future there's going to be like AI stylist system that you can ask AI what to dress, like what kind of personality you want to show to other people, so that AI can maybe advise you how to dress, like what kind of dress you should dress. And also maybe you can probably buy the dress you like, or you can probably buy from NFT, or like I think it's quite free to think how you show yourself with avatar, because in Metaverse you meet people like you don't know, but the first contact you have is how you look. So I think it's going to be fun, and also maybe not in Metaverse, but in future I would imagine that there's going to be like a physical event that everybody has to like wear like device, like glass device or something, and but going you go with like t-shirts and jeans, but with this device you can see people with like special dress or special, I don't know, special look, so that in the room with all the devices, without really wearing like real special dress or anything, you can still see other people dressed specially. So this is, I think I would imagine the future in that way.
That's very cool.
So, I think the idea of like extending someone's memory and being able to give them visual clues when they're, walk up and meet someone and you have your glasses on and it tells you very quickly the last time you met, all those sorts of things. I think that's interesting. I think there's also an opportunity for this technology to give people back powers that they've lost, or never had. So if you are blind, and we had an MIT hackathon where someone took our controller and turned it into a walking stick. So they were able to know when there was an object in front of them, use it as a walking stick. People that can't hear were able to, potentially in the future understand the world around them and explain it to them in using their other senses to help them get real world understanding, or alert someone who's blind with sound that there's something coming behind them. But it starts with that real world understanding, and understanding the objects, the content, how to categorize the sounds. And that's where I think the ecosystem can come into play, where we can all work together to define what these objects are and what the characteristics are of the things in the metaverse, whether they exist in a virtual world or if they're actually present in the physical world, or both. Because maybe I want my NFTs to show up in my house when I'm at home, but in my gallery, in my virtual world when I go there. And so maybe there's a way that's where the ecosystem can come in and help us to work together to build this world, and not argue as much about virtual, present, et cetera, because I think it does cross back and forth the boundary. It's just the challenges of understanding in the physical world seem harder to me, but maybe that's why I'm working on it.
Very nice. I think, Edgar, you wanted to comment first?
Yeah, because I just wanted to complement what Julie said, because I totally agree with her. There is research from my friend David Eagleman to replace, a lost sense by another one, for example. So deaf people could communicate with vibrations, for example, and things like that. So people are interested, just look at David Eagleman research. And then I wanted to also answer your question, Nicola, about things that people could do in the metaverse that they cannot do in reality. There are two possibilities. One is to be something someone else that they wish to be. But then the other thing is they could do, for example, a trip to Japan, but they cannot afford it. So they can try to transport themselves virtually in Japan and have that. So I wanted to make this case as well for the economic advantage of the metaverse in that particular case. That's it.
Just
and
to
more
echo quickly on
to everyone. More access to everyone.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Pearlie?
No, I just wanted to echo on that point. I think it was
Yep.
Mark Andreessen, the famous Silicon Valley investor, that famously said VR could be 1,000 times bigger than AR because most people live a pretty miserable physical reality today. I think that is a little pessimistic. Hopefully the world is moving towards a much more abundant place where less people are living in misery per se. But what Edgar is saying is absolutely applicable. That is a lot of people universally could benefit from being transported to a completely different place, where that might be a digital representation of the real world where they wish to be, or just any of us being transported to a fantastical place that doesn't exist in real life. And that's a really real use case, like how I wake up every morning and meditate on a glacier in Iceland. And I've been there for 3 times physically, hiked that glacier, but that's not possible if I do it every morning in my bedroom before the kids wake up. And so there are the real use cases where this is truly, truly magical.
I wanted to jump in to talk a little bit about the neuroscience. Edgar, I'm really glad you brought up David Eagleman and his sensory perception experiments, and I've actually had the privilege of going to his lab. It's incredible. I wanted to bring up some of the research that's being done at Stanford that talks about the way that people process experiences in virtual reality. It's actually processed by your hippocampus in the same way as if you and I were sitting on the couch next to each other. So in that sense, it's not a virtual reality. To your brain, it's an actual reality. And so I think when we imagine that, it's almost it's almost akin to splitting the atom. It's creating a new reality. And in that sense, we have responsibility, right? We have a responsibility to the users and to consumers to make sure that we're creating a place that embodies the best of humanity. And that's really what I hope for in the next 10 years. I know that sounds a little optimistic, given that I'm kind of the lawyer of the Black Mirror, but I really do think that we have the potential to give people the tools to recreate their world in a way that is real to them. It doesn't just feel real to their brains; it's real.
And maybe to double click on this, if it's so real that this is their reality, how do we protect people?
There's a few things that I've been looking at. One is developing strong trust and safety systems, and I will continue to beat the drum about that.
Please do.
Second, I think is I do a lot of human rights impact assessments for companies, and one thing that I've noticed is that the way that you call for help in different in different platforms varies based on experience. I would really love to see a standardization across platforms, and for extra credit, a standardization across the industry. In the article I wrote, I talked about how what would 911, which is how you call emergency services in the United States, what would that be like if every time you went to a different city, it was a different number? And in some places you had to email, and some you had to call, and some you had to call on a cell phone, and some you had to call on a payphone, and some you had to send a fax in. The reason 911 works is because it's a reflex. And so I think making smarter design decisions as the hardware is solidifying will really, really help create a safer metaverse. So when you go onto one company's properties, you know how to call for help. And then if we were able to do that across the industry, we would do a much better job at balancing safety, human rights, freedom of expression, and creativity.
Very nice.
Thank you. I'd like to echo Britton's comment. It was difficult for us to continue to stay deadly silent 3D space for a long time. We need interaction and community. We can stay in the movie theater for 2 hours, of course, because of the quality of contents, but more importantly, we would like to stay with the people we like, to chat them, to build a relationship with them. Building community and accessibility are key. This is not on-site or online discussion. We need to integrate ourselves with a new world. After integration, the service which can entertain you and your avatar in one-stop full digital experience will come. So this is what I'd like to echo Britton's comment. Thank you. Back to you, Nicola.
Well, I want to hear from Ember.
Yeah, I have a quote on this. I'll close with this for me. I like to say connection and curiosity happen the moment people can see potential. And I think that really recaps.
That's really nice. So this is a good space to open up the floor for feedback on this discussion from our audience. So please get your phone ready to scan the QR code and have your browser ready if you prefer to use your laptop or computer, as you will be able to vote on the answers of each discussion that we have gone through and that you thought was the most exciting or interesting. So as you see the QR code right now come up on the screen, you should be able to find a link in the chat section. Go to the polling page. You will be asked first what industry sector you are joining from, followed by a new page afterwards where you can vote on the panelist answer to question 1 that you found most interesting for the first 5 years. So we are starting to see quite an equal split between, okay, the industry is taking over. Investors and startups are about the same. It's good to see who is the audience for us. Very good. We're giving them 25 more seconds so that we have a good view. Some government and nonprofit. That's good to see. Very nice. All right. And now that we are closing on the voting, let's see who likes which questions and found the most interesting in the next 5 years. All right. Healthier living, which actually we didn't talk too much about. So I think we should definitively talk about healthier living in the follow-up. Next to education, I think that's one of the most important things in my on my agenda. So I'm very happy to start talking about this. All right. Can we go back to the results? I'm eager to see how they are shaping up. All right. True immersive AR is taking also a good score. More reality. So it looks like Ashida-san made a good case, 24% of the respondents. All right, so I think the winners are going to be tech for healthier living and more reality. And third place would be a truly immersive AR. And AR glasses are just making a comeback, but not enough time for them to make a complete comeback. So we talked about more reality. Maybe this is a good chance to talk about healthier living. And Pearly, I know you're passionate about this, so you will be the first to speak about it.
Yeah, I think that was really a thought starter for us to think about how the metaverse is not just about entertainment and social connections. It's really about unlocking a lot of access issues, such as great healthcare delivery services. That is already possible today. We've been investing pretty actively in this space, patient engagement, therapeutics, right? You can be doing your physical therapy, occupational therapy from the comfort of your home with a remote clinician, for example, and with the precise head tracking and motion tracking, analytics becomes possible, and your progress report becomes that much more tangible. As an example, and Edgar mentioned earlier about vision treatment, for example, lazy eye, glaucoma. We've also invested in companies that work on that space of vision treatment, right? Visual fitness. Not to mention many other ways in thinking about Renaissance therapy, for example, memory care, and how elder people uses VR to have improved mood, reduced anxiety, and talk about chronic pain management, for example. And there are just so many different applications in the health sphere today that's a very, very exciting, I think, development that we should already appreciate its impact today before the grand vision of the interoperable, interconnected metaverse can become a reality. But also in thinking about, how I mentioned, I meditate daily using VR, AR, neural interfaces, immersive tools. I think that is also a very important development in helping more people become more mindful and really take care of their mental health like it's your physical health. And that's why I said physical, emotional, social health and more holistic whole person well-being will become more of a center stage as tech innovations and business models in access to care will help us all pay more attention and have better access to taking care of ourselves. And as a result of that, we can all become more productive members of the society. And I believe that idea alone can change the world. And that's why I'm very excited about that.
I'm as excited as you, which also means that I lost track, and we should go back to the audience for question number 2. So question number 2 is for the questions about the most challenging innovation that will disrupt the market in 10 years. And so let's get the audience voting. And I really like what you said, Pearly, about the holistic view. I think that we really have to look at it very widely.
And I think if we, as technology builders, also think more about how technology can help us feel better versus what technology can and help us do more and be more productive versus how it makes us feel and take care of our feelings, like the social, emotional, social health, that is happening too, and is very positive.
Yep, absolutely. So let's see what our audience are saying about the 10 years most challenging innovation. Ear-based superhuman powers. I think that many of our panelists have convinced the audience this is really worth it, but very challenging. More reality in metaverse. So it's the most impactful in 5 years, but also the most challenging in 10 years. So that's interesting. And then what do we have? Frictionless AR. New 3D experience from 2D rules, which we talked about, but I think we could talk more about this. Open, secure, decentralized metaverse is doing well. And we have, the voting is closed. So really it's about more reality in metaverse and AR-based superpowers and new 3D experience from 2D rules. So I feel like we've talked well about the first two. So maybe we can talk about these 2D rules. And whoever mentioned it, maybe it was Rio. If we can talk about what does that mean, these 2D rules?
Yeah, thank you, Nicolas. I think the ultimate difference between internet and the metaverse is 2D or 3D. So the smartphone changes our community by its accessibility, easy pinching out, swipe by fingers, but still 2D. Horizontal movies are spread by YouTube community. Vertical movies are spread by TikTok community. They succeeded to build advertisement model dealing with copyright, including editing rights, so users are not concerning anything to create and post their movies online. But still, those movies are 2D basis. So turning to 3D, how about 3D data? As Ashida-san said, we have volumetric video image in fashion area and sports area, entertainment area, and lifestyle area. However, but many cases, we are struggling with translating 3D native productions into 2D rules, laws, business frameworks, and tutorials. We need 3D native manners.
We talk a lot about 3D, and I think there's other senses that when you put more reality in augmented reality or virtual reality, that there's more senses for us to pay attention to, and that if we can give humans these superpowers of greater hearing, greater seeing, greater feeling, greater in touch with their emotions, and greater ability to sense others' feelings, others' emotions, to look out for dangers for us that we might not be able to see. All the things that are rapid processing of facts that that humans can do. We need to put that intelligence into the metaverse. We need to be able to not just look at it each of silos of information, but we also need a lot of machine learning and understanding to go into the system. So we can give people the feedback, we can make them better humans, we can make them better at their jobs, they can make them better in their relationships, we can make them better just by giving them new facts and new perspectives that they can't get on their own. But it all starts with the things that that Ria was saying around translating what we've done today of 3D world into 2D world, just as long as we're not thinking about that as purely 3D graphics, but we're really thinking about the 3D world and all the elements in it that you get as a human.
It's actually very interesting to talk about machine learning for humans to be more human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because you can't always see yourself. I mean, you could. That's why I think people put out things on social media to see if they get a like or not. Is this resonating? Do people, do this? Am I getting approval? Is this? And so maybe there's a way to do it so that it's not so much about other people's approval, but you have an opportunity to know what other people think and then decide for yourself what behaviors you're going to change or what things how you're going to present yourself or what you're going to look like or how you're going to interact, just based on data that you can't perceive on your own.
Very nice. Edgar?
Yeah, to follow up on this metaverse enhancing health, you can envision contextual AI or the ability to prevent disease. Like talking about myself, my own experience. I was diagnosed with sleep apnea. I was in total denial that I had it until I really measured SpO2 and heart rate at night. So here I see I need to lose weight. It would be nice to have glasses that show me how much calorie there is in my meal. Of course, I can do that with a phone and all that, but that's a bit weird and unnatural. So I see many applications of that could be good for health. Like even when I wear glasses, I can see if my posture is okay without having to wear other type of sensors. There is a collection of applications that people will discover.
Yeah, I think building off of that, I think a lot of times it's what are we've talked about where we want the metaverse to go or how we want this to evolve. And I've seen in companies that we've worked with, like it's Discord or Reddit, living the naming nomenclature before it really gets big. And that makes you think of like what Julie's saying of like, how do we actually reward and how do we have our community reward for us, right? And so having things inside that going even to the fashion side of like maybe you gift somebody and now their circle or they have a badge or something because they were an explorer or an adventurer in the world or a giver. And so I think there's a lot of things that we can do that's based off of a person's actions, not just their words, that we can give, since we're talking more visual things in the space.
Very nice.
So Edgar was talking about how technology could help diagnose. I want to tell a real world story, actually. So the spatial computer that I worked on or had in my team was the Kinect. You guys remember the Kinect, where we understood your body motions and it could tell, you know, when your arms are moving, your legs are moving, and, you know, Dance Revolution was never the same. So I was in the team in the lab, and I walked in and they were showing me some things with it, and they said, "Did you just run over here?" And I said, "No, why?" And they said, "Because your heart rate's 88." And I could tell from, you know, the pulse in my forehead what my pulse was. And so I found out that I was hyperthyroid, that my thyroid medication was too high from that. So that's, you know, kind of an ambient use of spatial computing to help me understand my health. But I think there'll be more and more of that as time goes on.
That's an incredible story, Julie. I think that pardon my voice. One of the things that's very interesting to me, and in the research that I do, people talk a lot about how the metaverse helps them explore their identity. And so I think that's another aspect of creativity and sort of where we're going in 10 years. I imagine having a variety of different personas that I wear in different environments in virtual worlds. You know, whenever anyone asks me what my avatar is, I always tell them I'm a flying toaster, which dates me a little bit and remind, you know, anyone who uses Windows 95 laughs a little bit. But I think this will focus people on what actually makes us human, because how do you interact with a flying toaster? How do you interact if you can strip off all of these protected characteristics that we all carry around with us and try on a new one for a while? I think that's psychologically really interesting and socially really really beneficial.
Very nice. I want to ask Ashida-san about building on the idea of identity, but also self-expression. What do you think?
You know, you can be really yourself, or you can be somebody else as well. Like you can be someone that you want to be, or you can be somebody you really admire or whatever. And it's really all your choice that you want to be. But I would imagine that, you know, more the technology built up, people usually go back to, like, people really, you know, usually want to return to who you are and try to be yourself. And like, maybe, you know, until that, you know, like, between that, you're trying to be, you know, futuristic myself and, you know, different of myself. But at the end, I think you go back to who you are and trying to want to get the quality of yourself. And I think this is the you know, natural desire of human, I guess. And but it doesn't mean that you know, reject technology or anything. Technology will be you know, stay in everybody's life, and it's very important. And you know, no doubt that this is going to progress more and more. But still, in that kind of technology, people are trying to get back to yourself, you know, identity. So I think you really need a quality in Metaverse, I think.
Thank you very much, Tai. Wonderful. And now we will take the last half hour and open up the floor completely to our audience. So if you are joining us in the audience, please feel free to post your questions in the chat sections for our panelists to respond.
I was actually thinking about the last point Britton made about how socially beneficial it is if anyone can come in and be whatever they want to be, strip out all of the societal layers that seem to sometimes define us in the physical reality, right? Would that present a more equalized world, right, where gender, racial, faith differences kind of disappear and doesn't necessarily put one or the other people at a disadvantage? It's a very interesting thought experiment, and I, being the ever techno optimist, I would think that it is possible. But ultimately, I was also debating that concept with what Ashida-san say about ultimately people want to come back to be themselves and have a digital representation of themselves that is more akin to their real self. And again, that is, I think, up to debate and very interesting idea to discuss and see how it develops. I don't feel like I have an answer or prediction of how that would necessarily be. People probably pick their day use case of being themselves versus being a flying toaster. But the promise of how people come to the oasis to do whatever they can do, but they stay because of the concept of how they can be whoever they want to be, is real and is profound and something that we can think more about. I would love to explore more on this topic with Britain.
Very nice. Ember, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I find it interesting of what we do in our experiences that is also can be a representation of us digitally. So like Riot Games, when I was working there, we would give out digital skins, and you'd only get that character or that fashion outfit and that skill if you were at the event, and you could give one to a friend digitally that could not make it. And what was fascinating is to see the conversations over the amount of time that would pass, be like, what, you're an OG because you had the skin and you were at that event, or there was 3,000 people there and wait, we were both in this space at the same time. So I think there's something about that we're going to be able to see in the long term as we have our self-expression is also by the things that we do, not just the things that we say.
Yep. Okay, let's move to the questions from the audience. So we have a first question from Tina. Is this a limitation in the software or the hardware we have today? What technologies do we need to develop to get there?
Yeah, from not exactly hardware, but the chip technology perspective. Now, we have 7 nanometer chip today. And within 10 years, we have 2 nanometers chip. And also quantum bit for within these 10 years. That will increase massive performance, decrease huge energy consumption, reducing data center CO2, and lasting long device battery time, and significant speed up in data processing. So that kind of chip technology will help every devices.
I think it's both hardware and software. I think on the hardware side in VR, things have come a long way. I think getting it out of gaming and into more mainstream scenarios is the next step there. I think on the AR side, it's really hard to build an immersive device, and the technology that we have today for optics to be able to blend it in a way that feels you're not looking through a little viewer into the world, but you're actually having it around you and surround you. That's coming. I'm really excited about, plug for Magic Leap. Magic Leap 2 is a 70-degree field of view, feels much more immersive, much more real world. I think it takes getting devices like that out into the marketplace for people to start exploring what those scenarios would really look like, and how they can use a kind of a multimodal input of sound, touch, what you can see, what you can feel digitally, as well as the software power to get to, and the cloud capabilities to put things in the space. So I think it's still very early, even though experimentation and technology has been around for a long time. I think it's still very, very early in really bridging that gap. But the first thing is getting an immersive device out there that helps solve real problems that people have, and they find use in it. And it's not just a novelty. It's not. It's something that people feel that is essential to the work that they do. And just like someone, I think maybe Rio said it earlier too, about the internet And to me, it is kind of like the internet. We started out as military communication, and it's become the lifeblood of everything we do every day. And I think that's what will happen with AR as well. And I'm really excited to be part of it and to really see what's going on with all these panelists who've got really interesting takes on what it takes. And it will take people like us coming together to push it forward and figure out how to collaborate and cooperate with each other to make it what it can be, a more planful internet, I guess.
I think, Julie, I can't wait to have devices coming out. And what's nice is that we have 3 panelists who are all developing amazing devices that are coming out. But when we talk about software, and maybe I double click with you first, Julie, we're not only talking about software for the devices, but also applications, external developers who can build on these devices. How do you see that being enabled even better? Because this is really hard for developers without devices to necessarily develop.
Sure. It's creating that ecosystem of device and device capabilities, and then opportunities for developers to use that device to solve problems that people have that, get them excited. I think when the internet started, or even just computing in general, think of the first PCs that came out. What could you do really? You could run some programming languages on them. Maybe you made a little database to make a recipe book or something. It took a while until the functionality got there that you could build, a spreadsheet program or a word processor, or, one day the PC added graphics capabilities and all of a sudden Photoshop became possible, so it will continue to evolve over time. I think the cloud component is a very interesting piece to it. Being able to register content in the cloud for other people to build on top of will create new scenarios. I think there's interesting work going on with Meta. There's interesting work going on with NVIDIA, Qualcomm. Several people have different takes on the verses, and we want to be the device that's the best device for people to build solutions on those verses.
Very nice.
I can add to that. So I think the question 1 was about what the hurdle is to realizing this metaverse vision. Of course, hardware, software, the cost, accessibility, all of that, and what Julie has mentioned are very obvious challenges that we're still facing today. But another layer of the challenge that we must overcome together as an industry would be those standards. Right now, each device has its own SDKs. Developers need to do not an insignificant amount of work to make their content work on each device using different SDKs. Hence, the initiatives like the OpenXR SDK or the VRM for humanoid avatars, etc., are important developments where we can come together as an industry and define what some of these more open standards are, so developers can have a more easier time. The ecosystem can become more of a real open system versus a closed wall ecosystem. And that would accelerate, I believe, the content creation side of things, monetization side of things, and user adoption side of things, and to, ultimately work towards this interoperable, interconnected metaverse, which is not a small task at all if you talk about incorporating also Web3 decentralization architecture design. But ultimately, you can think of a lot of these things are still very silo, and because a lot of companies are investing a tremendous amount of resources in building these early applications of hardware, software, content, etc. But ultimately, the grand challenge of how you can have one metaverse where you can go between worlds and wherever you are, whatever device you come in with, that is not a small task, and it requires all of us to work closely together.
And this is so worth it. Edgar, do you want to take the question from Gita?
So Gita, the question about how long before we integrate smell. So I can answer that. I know a few startups that do that, but it's quite challenging for several reasons. So the first one is not everybody has the same sense of smell, so there is a calibration issue. Then there is also a safety issue, because most of these ideas is like they send you some ingredients too, so that you smell something, and it's not like a printer where with RGB you do all colors. Here it's like what type of odors can you simulate, and more importantly, there is a challenge in terms of content creation and the cost of that content creation, because when you introduce smell, you need to introduce smell for all the experience you are living. And it kind of reminds me an experience that I had at the Technicolor R&D Center. They had this demonstration of a VR experience where the idea was you are a tree and there is rain that comes to the tree, and so you can smell the forest, right? And then there is a fire, so someone lights a match behind you and it smells like fire, and it's not scalable. But it also reminded me of a Woody Allen movie. I don't remember the title, where the person is watching a movie and then all of a sudden, there is a massage, so he feels the massage, and then there is a criminal that comes and he's all scared about what happens next. But joking aside, I think there is technical challenge there, and there is also economical challenge to produce the content that would match all of these things. So many times technologies look at just how things can be done, but then you have to wonder if it's scalable, and you have to wonder if there is economic sense to all that.
Thank you.
So I think one of the next questions was from Jennifer, asking about the ideas. We've talked about some of the ideas of impacting people with disabilities, and how do we see some of that work influencing the greater population? For me, the thing that I see is more choice, and to create a human rights centric framework for the metaverse. In whatever company you're at, you want to give more choices and more ways to perceive the world for your users. I believe it was Oculus in June, in update 30, created two things. One was a color blindness filter, so that people who are colorblind could turn it on and use the device as if they had normal color perception. And the second was a vantage point adapter, so that people who were seated could actually have a standing vantage point, which really helped people in wheelchairs. However, this isn't just limited to people in wheelchairs. This is limited. This helps people who are elderly. This helps people who are pregnant. This helps people who have limited mobility. 1 out of 7 people in the world is disabled. And the majority of disabilities are what they call non-apparent or invisible disabilities. So the more that companies can think about this and how to give their users more choice, the better off the metaverse will be, and the more we'll see it as a place for all people.
Yeah, one of the questions was from Catherine. It said, how is Web3 integrated into the metaverse? And I found it fascinating is because Web3, it's so many different verticals, from decentralizing to crypto to blockchain, all these other pieces. But what I find interesting is how are we actually creating that open ecosystem where you can jump from one metaverse platform and go into another, and be able to easily integrate of like a standardization. So if you have an NFT and you've created this amazing digital identity in a fashion world and all this, can you take that in one platform and be able to go to another and be able to take another one? A lot of times, like if you even look at what gaming does, you can spend so much money and have all of this identity, and if that game closes, it all just got lost as well. So I think one of the biggest things for mass adoption is how do you actually be able to port, as I know Julie had mentioned, porting to different groups, and I think that's going to be very important.
I think that there's there's a lot of interesting things. We've talked about regulation. I like a lot of the things that Britton was talking about, where, who owns the data, who can you keep track of your own usage in the metaverse? What if there are physical, if we're going to map the world to help people create experiences in it, like who sets the rules on what data gets shared and who owns the data? And so I think there's a lot to think about there. And, because you certainly, while you might want to be able to map a public space, and that might be okay, mapping the inside of your house and then sharing that out is probably not okay. And so there's a lot of consideration with that. And then I think also knowing about people's abilities or disabilities, there's privacy concerns across all of that. So, and people that would want to, I think there's a question about monetizing in the metaverse. I think we want to make sure that we're thoughtful about how that can happen too. And so people can own their own data, own their own selves, and then have an opportunity to trade it for services or trade it for capabilities, much like we do in gaming today, it's up to their choice about what the transaction is and what the transfer looks like. So but there's lots you can go down. You can go down the whole Bitcoin, like crypto side of it. There's lots of elements to it, but I think there's lots for us to do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julie. Talking about monetization, we had one question from Anil about why there was so many unicorns in the metaverse space. Maybe I will ask the question differently, is when do we expect to start to see a lot of startups becoming very successful in the metaverse? And I feel like I should ask Pearly, because you invest in these startups, and I'm sure you invest with a view that they become big success. So when do you think it's going to become that big?
We already have unicorns in the metaverse space, in immersive, in some blockchain gaming space. They already start to emerge. It's not like they're not here yet. But of course, we're still in the early stage of the adoption curve, right, from the grand scheme of things. So as a lot of these different pillars, technologically speaking, user experience, regulations, and inclusiveness, a lot of these design elements and enabling technologies, as they come together in place, we'll start to see that adoption curve tip, and that's what we're all working towards. Then you'll start to see a lot of these startups that are building on the front lines start to do really, really well. I'm not going to give a prediction on when that is, but we definitely already start seeing unicorns.
Oh, Pearly, I'm sure you can give a little guess whether it's within 3 years, 5 years, 10 years.
That's a slippery slope. In the near future, it really depends on how much effort we all put in and how much we get to work together to make all this happen.
Very nice. Rio, do you want to take the questions from Bill?
Sure. So question 9 from Bill. To what extent do you expect the government to regulate the metaverse? So I think we have two parts. One side, yes, regulation. Through our discussion, we need to much care about the children's or some kind of technology or health issues. On the other hand, for example, Japan has comic, game, and animation. And also Korea has very great contents, entertainment contents. In that case, government also looking carefully, they are saying open metaverse policy or checking how this can connect and help the industry growing. So government is not only providing the prohibit something, but also helping us to connect more and more better cases, or as we said, more humanity society. To become more humanity society, they will also support us to see. So I think two type of trend simultaneously progressing.
So I'm an international lawyer. I speak to a lot of governments and intergovernmental organizations. They're very interested in regulating the metaverse. And some of the questions that tend to come up across the board is how are companies going to protect privacy? How is AR going to look different than VR? How will bystander notification work? What does meaningful informed consent look like in the metaverse? And how will we balance freedom of expression with public safety? Many governments are looking at this, and I actually think I'm on some World Economic Forum things with other people who are panelists here, where we're going to look at issues like this. So the thing that I think about is like I'm sorry, I can't remember who brought this up, but the internet started as a military communications device and moved to academia. Now we all use it. This is starting out as an industry with sort of a tenuous business model, right? So the other question I get is, what is going to fuel the metaverse? Is it going to be advertising? Is it going to be subscriptions? How is this going to work? So a lot of the answers are still unknown, but governments are paying attention.
Thank you, Britain. And that links nicely to one of the questions from Andrew. What are some startups innovating in the area of trust and safety for the metaverse? So specifically startups working on that very topic.
I recently met a startup from Switzerland building an AI tool to detect age from voice. So it would know if the user is a child or a teenager, and in hopes of such tools being adopted by developers and platforms to serve and moderate appropriate content for the users. That's probably one of the few that I've come across. I would love to see if others have come across other companies.
Very good. Thank you, Pearly. Has anyone seen something? It looks like a big opportunity if no one is working on this, but yet the panelists keep saying this is one of the critical issues. So yeah, there's a gap. There's one more question from Lina. What about ethics in the metaverse? How would this be addressed?
I would love to see an initiative between companies in the industry to set industry best practices and ethical standards, and do it in a proactive way that doesn't seem like it's reactive to techlash, and kind of build off what I was saying before. Like the Web 2.0, the internet had this basis that lent itself to education and open communication and open source. I think we get to choose again what's at the core, and so there are many people looking at ethics in the metaverse, but I love to see industry leadership on this, because because the hardware is not solidified yet. And when you make choices about your hardware and who it includes and who it does not, that's actually an ethical choice, even though it looks like a design decision.
Thank you, Britain.
I think one thing is also the trust piece. I think we've definitely seen quite a bit in data. Like, how is my data being used? When I click on that button, where does it go? And I think one of the biggest things is letting people actually see how their data is being used. And I've seen in our platform, we've seen a couple different ones where you can actually go into the room and see where people have clicked and what they've watched and what they liked and how long they stayed. Well, you don't close that off just for the brand or the business side. You can also have it open so the consumer can see it, so they can see where people have walked, and they're part of the storytelling, and they're choosing how much they want to share, but then they get to see how it's used. And I think that also adds back to what the trust is for people.
Yeah, I do think it's an important thing to think about. I mean, I worked on Windows, Microsoft stuff long time ago, and I mean, for a long time. So I think when we first made Windows, we didn't really think about viruses and people wanting to steal. We were just so excited about what you can make technology do. And we had to go back in later when the bad actors started trying to come in and exploit and steal your credit card, or get into your systems in your business. And that's the world we're in. We see it, gaming. Like when I was running the hardware division, and I was in my son's Xbox, in the gaming magazine, there's the trolls and the things that people would say about me that didn't know me online, that, didn't, faceless, nameless people saying horrible things because they felt threatened in some way. Like, there's an opportunity for us to think about those lessons that we've learned from computing, from the internet, to make the metaverse a better place that really helps people maximize their human potential. And if we don't do it together, and we all try to keep some piece of it just for ourselves, we're gonna find out later how people are gonna exploit it. I mean, they'll exploit it anyway. But we can think ahead, given past experience, on things that we don't have to make that mistake again. And so I think this is a good start, getting out and talking about it, and meeting the people that are the movers and shakers in the metaverse and starting to think about it. So I'm definitely going to be connecting with several people on the panel after this.
Very nice.
Yeah, this is just the idea. NFT might become the blocker to anti-ethic activity. I heard the story about the NFT picture, which is a forest. If forest loses, this NFT loses its value. So if we sell something with NFT and someone did anti-ethical action, this NFT will disappear its value. This is something we can do. And also 3D can eliminate something from multi-angle. If it is a 2D, we need to edit to an enormous effort. But 3D can, how can I say that, reusable and editable are more easier than 2D. So I think technology can help such kind of anti-ethical activity. Thank you, Nicola.
Thank you, Rio. And as the saying goes, time certainly does fly when you are with great people together. And in this case, I can speak for many of us saying that I'll be leaving this session more informed than when we started, even more inspired about the possibilities of the future, but being mindful of what to watch out for. I want to extend one final and sincere thanks to all our panelists for their time and expertise and sharing their passions with us all. And to all of you out there watching, asking, thinking, dreaming with us, thank you so much. None of this would be possible, nor the action that may follow, without all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nicola.
Thank you.
Now, thank you. Today was just the beginning. Just a reminder to check out our remaining sessions in the coming days on connectivity, edge computing, Industry 5.0, which is 4.0, but with a sustainability goal in mind, and the future of mobility. Tomorrow, in particular, with a connectivity panel, you will be going to see world-class leaders from academia, industry, regulators, and investors to discuss how we can bring a better future for all of us with better connectivity. The session is coming to a close, but this is important discussion and it should continue. Please scan this QR code to join and contribute to this engagement on digital transformation, even after this event concludes. And if you would like to share about DX Week, feel free to use the hashtag DXWeek2022 on LinkedIn. Thank you again to our panelists and to our audience, and we hope to see you all tomorrow.